The plasma bolt hit Lieutenant Carla Briggs square in the chest and sent her flying backward into the shuttle's wall. Her armor cracked. Warning lights flashed across her visor. 3 ribs, maybe 4. She tasted copper. The Kreveth war party surrounded the downed scout ship, their 12-foot frames blocking out the twin suns of Epsilon 7. Obsidian skin, 4 arms, eyes like molten gold. They'd been killing humans for 6 months now. No diplomacy. No mercy. Just spears and plasma and bodies left in the dust. Carla's squad was gone. All of them. She'd watched Rodriguez get torn apart. She'd heard Patterson screaming over the comm until he wasn't. Now it was just her and the wreckage and the slow hiss of escaping oxygen. She rolled onto her side, gasping. Her rifle was 10 feet away. Might as well be 10 miles. The Kreveth were closing in, those golden eyes fixed on her like she was prey. Their leader, the one with the white markings across his shoulders, raised his spear high. Then she heard it. A sound that didn't belong. Not here. Not on this burning rock where everything came to die. Mewing. Soft. Desperate. Coming from under a collapsed bulkhead near the cargo bay. Carla turned her head. There, trapped beneath twisted metal, was something small and gray. A survivor from the colony transport they'd been sent to find. Not human. Not Kravath. One of the indigenous creatures the colonists had tried to domesticate. Cat-like, matted fur soaked with something dark. It was dying. The Kreveth leader noticed her looking. He barked something in his language. The others laughed, a sound like grinding stone. Carla's vision blurred. Her suit was failing. Maybe 30 seconds of consciousness left. She could use them trying to reach the rifle. Maybe get one shot off before they finished her. Instead, she dragged herself toward the sound. Her gauntlets scraped against rock. Every movement sent fire through her chest. The Kreveth watched her, spears lowering slightly. Confused. She wasn't running. Wasn't fighting. Wasn't doing anything that made sense. Carla reached the creature. Its breathing was shallow, rapid. Those 6 legs twitched weakly. One eye was swollen shut. The other looked at her with something she recognized. Fear. Pain. The knowledge that the end was close. She'd seen that look before. In Patterson's eyes right before the comm cut out. Her hand moved to her helmet release. The atmosphere here was breathable. Barely. Her suit's AI screamed warnings as the seals broke. She pulled the helmet off. The creature's fur was soft under her palm. Carla leaned down and pressed her lips gently to its forehead. The Kreveth war party went absolutely silent. The leader's spear hit the ground first. The sound rang across the plateau like a bell, sharp and final. Then the others followed. 12 warriors, each one capable of ripping a human in half, lowering their weapons until the points touched red dust. Carla didn't move. Her hand stayed on the creature's head, fingers buried in gray fur. Its breathing was slowing. She felt each shallow rise and fall against her palm. The Kreveth leader stepped forward, his 4 arms spread wide, palms open. He spoke, his voice like rolling thunder. And though Carla didn't know the words, she understood the tone. Reverence. The creature's good eye closed. Its body went still. Carla pulled back slowly, her hand trembling. Blood from her split lip dripped onto the dust. She looked up at the towering figures surrounding her, ready for the killing blow that should have already come. Instead, the leader knelt, all 12 feet of him, folding down until his eyes were level with hers. The other warriors did the same, a wave of obsidian bodies lowering in perfect synchronization, their golden eyes fixed on her. But the hunger was gone. Something else had replaced it, something she couldn't name. The leader reached out with one of his upper arms. Carla's muscles tensed, but she was too broken to move, too exhausted to fight. His massive hand, easily large enough to crush her skull, touched her shoulder with impossible gentleness. He spoke again. Different words this time. Slower. His eyes moved from her face to the dead creature, then back. "I don't understand," Carla whispered. Her voice was raw. "I don't know what you want." The leader's hand moved to his chest, covering the white markings there. Then he pointed at the creature, at Carla, back to his own chest. He stood, turning to his warriors and barking commands. They moved instantly, 2 of them heading to the crashed shuttle. Carla tried to rise, failed, slumped back against the bulkhead. The warriors returned, carrying a portable medical unit. Human technology, taken from some previous raid. They set it beside her with surprising care. The leader pointed at it, then at her wounds. His meaning was clear. Use it. Carla stared. 6 months of war. 6 months of her people being slaughtered without hesitation. And now this. She reached for the med kit with shaking hands, pressed the injector against her neck. Synthetic adrenaline and painkillers flooded her system. The emergency foam sealed her cracked ribs. The Cravath waited. When she could breathe without seeing stars, Carla looked at the leader. Why? He knelt again. This time he placed one hand over the dead creature, the other over his heart. He spoke a single word, repeated it 3 times like a prayer. Then he did something that made Carla's blood run cold. He picked up the creature's body with both lower arms, cradling it like something precious. He stood and turned toward the east, where the twin suns were setting behind jagged mountains. The other warriors formed a line behind him. The leader looked back at Carla, waited. He wanted her to follow. Every instinct screamed at her to refuse. This was a trap. Had to be. But she'd already used her last play. Already spent her final moments on something that shouldn't have mattered. A dying animal she'd never seen before. On a planet she'd never wanted to visit. In a war she hadn't started. Carla forced herself to stand. Her legs shook. The med kit was doing its work, but she'd need real medical attention soon. Still, she took one step, then another. The Cravath leader made a sound, deep and resonant. Approval, maybe? He began walking toward the mountains, the dead creature held against his chest. His warriors flanked him on both sides, and Carla Briggs, last survivor of Firebase Delta, followed her enemies into the unknown. They walked for an hour. The terrain grew rougher, rockier. Carla's armor systems were failing one by one. Her water supply was critical. She should have collapsed twice already, but something kept her moving. The way the Cravath looked back every few minutes, checking, making sure she followed. The way the leader held that small body like it mattered. Finally, they reached a canyon entrance. Carved into the rock face were symbols, ancient and weathered. The Cravath stopped. The leader turned to face Carla fully. He lowered the creature's body to the ground and stepped back. Then he pulled a blade from his belt, raised it high, and brought it down across his own palm. Black blood welled up. He held his hand over the dead creature, let 3 drops fall onto gray fur. Every warrior did the same. When they finished, the leader looked at Carla, extended the blade handle first. Her turn. Carla took the blade. The handle was warm from the leader's grip, carved from something that felt like bone. She looked down at the creature's body, surrounded by drops of black Cravath blood, and understood nothing. But she drew the blade across her palm anyway. Human blood, red and bright, fell next to the black, mingled with it in the dust. The leader's eyes widened. He spoke rapidly to his warriors, his voice carrying an edge of something Carla had never heard from a Cravath before. Excitement. Wonder. They responded in a chorus, their deep voices creating harmonics that made the air vibrate. The leader placed his bleeding hand over his heart, then extended it toward Carla. She mirrored the gesture, uncertain. When their palms touched, his skin was fever hot. He gripped her hand firmly, and every warrior struck their chests twice in unison. A salute. The leader released her and gathered the creature's body again. He carried it into the canyon, and the procession continued deeper into carved stone corridors that predated any human presence on Epsilon 7. Torches lined the walls, burning with blue flame. The symbols grew more elaborate, depicting scenes Carla couldn't fully parse. Beings that looked like the Cravath, but smaller. Others that might have been human, but the proportions were wrong. And everywhere, carved with obsessive detail, the 6-legged creatures. They emerged into a massive cavern. Carla stopped breathing. The space was enormous, easily 300 feet high. But it wasn't the size that froze her. It was what filled it. Thousands of the creatures, alive, healthy. moving in coordinated groups across terraced platforms built into the cavern walls. Some were grooming each other. Others tended to glowing plants she didn't recognize. Young ones, barely larger than her fist, tumbled over each other in play, and standing among them, caring for them, were Kravith. Not warriors. These ones wore different markings, carried no weapons. They moved gently through the creatures, checking them, feeding them, speaking in soft tones that rumbled like distant thunder. The war party leader carried the dead creature to a raised platform in the cavern center. He laid it down carefully, arranging its legs, smoothing its fur. Then he stepped back and raised his arms. The cavern fell silent. Every creature stopped moving. Every Kravith turned toward the platform. In that moment of absolute stillness, Carla felt the weight of something ancient pressing down. The leader spoke. His words echoed off stone, formal and rhythmic. A eulogy, Carla realized. He was giving the creature a funeral. When he finished, the other warriors approached one by one, each placing a hand on the small body and speaking quietly. The Kravath tenders, the ones who'd been caring for the living creatures, came next. Some of them touched the body with all four hands at once. Then the leader turned to Carla and gestured. She walked forward on legs that barely worked. Up close, she could see the creature's wounds more clearly. Plasma burns. The same weapon that had hit her. This thing had been caught in the crossfire of a war it had nothing to do with. Just like the colonists. Just like her squad. Carla placed her hand on the creature's side one last time. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm sorry you were there. I'm sorry we brought this to your world." The leader made a sound. Not angry. Sad, maybe. He placed one of his hands over hers, dwarfing it completely. Then he led her away from the platform, through the crowd of watching Kravath, to a section of wall covered in fresher carvings. Recent history, preserved in stone. The images told a story. Humans arriving on Epsilon 7. The colony ships landing. First contact with the Kravith, which looked peaceful. The creatures being shared between the two species. Then something changing. Weapons appearing. The carvings showed humans and Kravith fighting, but not each other. They were fighting something else. Tall figures with too many limbs and heads that split open vertically. Carla's blood went cold. She'd seen intelligence reports, heard rumors. The Zenthar, a species that had wiped out 3 colonies before anyone even knew what they were. The carvings showed the Zenthar slaughtering humans and Kravith indiscriminately, showed the creatures dying in massive numbers, then showed the humans pulling back, abandoning the Kravith to fight alone. Except that wasn't what happened. Carla knew the official story. The Kravath had attacked first, unprovoked. Every briefing said the same thing, but the wall said different. The leader pointed to a specific carving. Humans in uniform, but the markings were wrong. Not Earth military. Not any colony defense force she recognized. Private contractors, maybe. Or something worse. He pointed to the Zenthar figures. Then to the human ones. Drew a line connecting them with one massive finger. Working together. "No," Carla said. "That's not possible. We wouldn't." The leader's expression stopped her. Those golden eyes held certainty, truth, and grief so deep it made her own chest ache. He pointed to the creatures in the carvings, pointed to the living ones in the cavern. Then he touched the marking on his chest and spoke a word she'd heard before, the same word he'd said over the body, the one that sounded like a prayer. One of the tenders approached, an older Kravith with silver threading through the white marks on her shoulders. She carried a datapad, human technology salvaged from somewhere. She activated it and held it out to Carla. The screen showed surveillance footage, a human facility, prefab buildings arranged in a defensive grid. The timestamp was 8 months old. Carla watched as Zenthar forces emerged from transport ships. Watched as human soldiers stood aside and let them pass. Watched as those same soldiers opened the gates to a Kravath settlement. Watched the slaughter that followed. The creatures died first, systematically, efficiently. The Zenthar harvested something from their bodies, loading glowing vials onto their transports while human contractors secured the perimeter. "Oh, God," Carla breathed. The leader spoke, his voice hard now, angry. He pointed at the screen, then at Carla, then swept his arm across the cavern. The meaning was clear. Your species did this. Help them. For profit or politics or reasons that didn't matter to the dead. And when the Kreveth fought back, Earth painted them as the aggressors. Carla's knees gave out. She hit the stone floor hard but barely felt it. The datapad slipped from her hands, still playing footage of systematic murder dressed up as military operations. We didn't know, she said. The words sounded hollow even to her. Command never told us. They said you attacked colonies, killed civilians. We were sent to stop a threat. The leader stood over her, all four arms crossed, waiting. How many? Carla forced herself to look up at him. How many of these creatures did they take? The tender with the silver markings tapped the datapad, bringing up new files. Numbers scrolled across the screen. Harvest logs. Shipping manifests. Corporate seals from companies Carla recognized. Pharmaceuticals. Biotech. Military contractors. 47,000 creatures. Taken over 6 months. Their bodies processed for some compound their biology produced. Something valuable enough to start a war over. Valuable enough to let another species do the killing while humans pretended to be victims. The leader knelt beside Carla. He pulled something from a pouch at his belt. A vial, identical to the ones in the footage. It glowed faintly blue, beautiful and terrible. He held it up, then crushed it in his fist. Glass, shattered. Liquid hissed as it hit the air and evaporated. The leader opened his hand, letting fragments fall. Then he pointed at Carla's chest, right where the plasma bolt had hit her. She understood. The compound extended life, healed injuries that should be fatal, turned ordinary soldiers into something harder to kill. She'd seen Marines survive things that should have left them dead, had wondered why the new medical protocols worked so well. Now she knew. The kissing, Carla said slowly. When I kissed that creature, you stopped because the leader placed one hand over his heart again, spoke carefully, using simple gestures to bridge the language gap. He pointed at the creature's body on the platform, touched his own forehead, then Carla's, made a gesture that looked like cradling something precious. The tender stepped forward and activated a translation program on the datapad. The voice was mechanical, stilted, but clear enough. Sacred children, given by the first maker, not for taking, not for using, for protecting, for honoring, for loving until the final breath. The leader continued, his words translated in fragments. Your kind came, took sacred children, made them into weapons fuel. We fought. But you, he touched Carla's face with surprising gentleness. You saw sacred child dying. You gave comfort, you gave love, not for gaining, not for profit, because pain should not be alone. Carla's throat tightened. It was just instinct, I didn't think. Thinking is how your kind justify taking. Not thinking is how you showed truth of spirit. The leader stood, extending a hand to help her up. You are first human to see sacred children as worthy of grief, first to give honor in death. Carla let him pull her to her feet. Around the cavern, the Kravath tenders had gathered closer, watching with those molten gold eyes. The living creatures, too, had stopped their activities, hundreds of them, all focused on the humans standing in their sanctuary. What happens now? Carla asked. The leader didn't answer immediately. Instead, he led her to another section of wall. These carvings were incomplete, fresh chisel marks showing where work had stopped recently. The images showed the war continuing, showed more death on both sides, and at the end, nothing. Just blank stone waiting to be filled. 2 futures, the translated voice said as the leader spoke. 1. We kill all humans on Epsilon. 7. Protect sacred children by destroying threat. Final solution. Final death for all. He pointed to the blank stone. 2. Unknown. Not carved because not yet chosen. Depends on you. I'm nobody. Just a lieutenant. I don't make policy or... The leader cut her off with a sharp gesture. He pulled out another datapad, this one showing real-time tactical displays. Kravath forces surrounding human positions across the entire continent. Thousands of warriors, equipped with weapons Carla hadn't seen before. Plasma cannons that made their spears look primitive. Artillery positions targeting every firebase, every settlement, every ship in orbit. They'd been holding back. All this time, Earth forces thought they were winning a grinding war of attrition. But the Krevath had been gathering strength, preparing for a final strike that would wipe humanity from Epsilon. 7 completely. Launch in 3 solar cycles, the translation continued. Unless you give reason to stop. What reason could I possibly give? How it could have slipped outside of our perimeter is... I can't speak for my government. Can't promise they'll stop taking your sacred children. I'm just one soldier who made one gesture. The leader's expression shifted, something that might have been a smile on a species that didn't smile. One gesture changed everything. Showed that humans can see beyond use value, can recognize sacred without ownership, can give love without transaction. He gestured to the other warriors who'd formed a semicircle behind Carla. We are alphas, war leaders, decision makers. For 6 months, we believed all humans same. Take, use, discard, kill before killed. But you, he touched her shoulder, you proved belief wrong. If one human has truth of spirit, maybe others exist. Maybe war not only path. The tender, with silver markings, stepped forward. She spoke directly, her translated words firm. We propose exchange. You return to your people. Tell truth of what happened. Show them recordings. Demand justice for sacred children. Demand end to harvesting. They won't listen. I'm nobody to them. Then make them listen. The leader's voice hardened, or we end them. All of them. 3 solar cycles. You have until then to prove humanity worthy of sharing this world. Carla's mind raced. 72 hours to expose a corporate conspiracy that probably went all the way up the chain of command, to convince people who'd been lied to for months that everything they'd been fighting for was built on murder and profit. Impossible. But she thought of Rodriguez torn apart fighting an enemy he didn't understand, of Patterson, screaming as he died for a cause that never existed, of the creature under that bulkhead, suffering because it was caught between species that both failed it. I'll need proof, she said. More than footage. Command will say it's faked. I need something they can't deny. The tender smiled, a chilling expression on a face not built for it. She tapped the datapad, and a new file opened. Corporate communications, signed orders, payment records. Names Carla recognized from Earth's Senate, from military brass, from pharmaceutical boards. Everything. We have been collecting since first sacred child was taken, waiting for moment to use. The tender handed Carla the datapad. Moment is now, because of you. Because you kissed dying sacred child and reminded us that not all humans are monsters. The leader raised his hand, and every warrior in the cavern struck their chests twice. The salute again, but this time it felt different, heavier. 3 solar cycles, he repeated. Prove us wrong about humanity, or we finish what should have ended months ago. They gave Carla a transport, a small Kreveth skimmer, fast and nearly invisible to human scanners. The controls were intuitive enough, adapted from captured human technology. 2 warriors accompanied her to the canyon entrance, then stepped back and watched as she fired the engines. The flight to Firebase Arcturus took 40 minutes. Carla spent every second reviewing the files, memorizing names and dates and shipment routes. The evidence was airtight. Devastating. Enough to start criminal investigations across 3-star systems, if anyone would listen. She brought the skimmer down 2 miles from the Firebase perimeter, hiding it in a ravine and covering the approach on foot. Her armor's IFF was still broadcasting, but she'd been listed as KIA for over 8 hours. The sentries would be jumpy. They opened fire before she got within 50 yards. Carla hit the dirt as plasma bolts scorched the air above her. Cease fire, friendlies. Lieutenant Carla Briggs, Delta Squad. The shooting stopped. Confused voices crackled over external speakers. Briggs is dead. Confirm your identity. She stood slowly, hands raised, and recited her service number and authentication codes. After a tense minute, the gates opened and a security team rushed out. They surrounded her, weapons trained, scanning for threats. Captain Vincent Hayes met her at the command center. He was early 50s, career military, with eyes that had seen too many deployments. He looked at Carla like she was a ghost. How are you alive? Long story, sir. I need to speak with Colonel Perth immediately. It's urgent. Hayes studied her damaged armor, the dried blood on her face. You were the only survivor of a full Krevath war party. Forgive me if I'm skeptical about urgency versus debriefing. Sir, with respect, what I have to say affects every human on this planet. The Colonel needs to hear it now. Something in her voice made Hayes pause. He nodded slowly. Come with me. But if this is some kind of stress reaction, it's not. Colonel Nathan Perth was reviewing tactical displays when they entered his office. He was younger than Hayes, a political appointment who'd never seen real combat before Epsilon. 7. His uniform was too clean. His hands too steady. Carla had never trusted him. Lieutenant Briggs. Perth didn't look up from his screens. Captain Hayes tells me you have urgent information. Make it quick. Carla placed the datapad on his desk. Sir, I have evidence that the Krevath didn't start this war. We did. Or rather, human contractors working with the Zenthar did. They'd been harvesting indigenous creatures for pharmaceutical compounds. The Krevath were defending their territory. Perth's expression didn't change. That's a serious accusation. It's documented, sir. Surveillance footage, corporate communications, shipping manifests, it's all there. The Colonel picked up the datapad, scrolled through a few files, then set it down. Interesting. Where did you get this? The Krevath gave it to me. The Krevath. Perth's tone was flat. The same species that killed your entire squad. They just handed you evidence and let you go. Yes, sir. Because I showed them humanity isn't all the same. That some of us care about more than profit. Hayes stepped forward. Colonel, maybe we should review. I've seen enough. Perth pushed the datapad back toward Carla. This is obvious propaganda. The Krevath captured you, broke you psychologically, and sent you back with fabricated evidence to sow discord. It's a classic tactic. Sir, the files have authentication markers. Corporate seals. These companies exist. The people named in these documents are real, and every piece of it can be faked by an advanced species with access to our networks. Perth stood, his voice hardening. You've been through trauma, Lieutenant. No one blames you for being manipulated. But I can't have you spreading enemy propaganda through my command. Carla felt ice spreading through her chest. You already knew. The words hung in the air. Perth's expression flickered just for a second. Enough. Colonel Perth has full operational authority from Earth Command, Hayes said quietly. Too quietly, like he was warning her. Carla looked at Hayes, then back at Perth. You knew what the contractors were doing. You knew why the Krevath attacked, and you let us keep fighting anyway. I know my duty is to protect human interests on this planet, Perth said, whatever form those interests take. And I know that a junior officer suffering from combat stress doesn't get to question strategic decisions above her pay grade. He pressed a button on his desk. Security personnel entered immediately. Too fast. They'd been waiting outside. Lieutenant Briggs is to be placed in medical quarantine pending psychological evaluation, Perth ordered. She's not to have contact with any other personnel. The datapad she brought back is classified evidence and will be secured immediately. Sir, you can't. I can and I am. This conversation is over. The security team moved to take Carla's arms. She didn't resist. Fighting would just confirm Perth's narrative. Instead, she looked at Hayes. Captain, you know this is wrong. Hayes met her eyes. Something passed between them. Understanding, maybe. Or sympathy. But he said nothing as they led her away. The medical bay was clean and quiet. They locked her in a private room, posted guards outside, and left her with nothing but a cot and her thoughts. Through the small window, she could see the fire base going about its business. Soldiers moving between buildings, supply trucks unloading. Everything normal. Carla checked her armor's chronometer. 59 hours until the Krevath launched their attack. Until every human on Epsilon ISM died because one colonel cared more about corporate profits than the truth. She sat on the cot and tried to think. Perth had the evidence now. which meant it would be destroyed. Her testimony would be dismissed as trauma-induced delusion. No one would believe her. No one would. The door opened. Hayes stepped in alone. No guards. He held a finger to his lips and pulled a small device from his pocket. Electronic warfare kit, designed to scramble surveillance. He activated it and the room's monitoring lights went dark. "You have about 3 minutes before someone notices," Hayes said quietly. "So listen carefully. Perth isn't just complicit. He's on the payroll. Has been since before deployment. His job is to keep the war going long enough for the contractors to meet their quotas." "How do you know?" "Because I've been investigating him for 2 months. I'm with Earth Defense Intelligence. We've suspected something was wrong with this operation since the casualty rates started climbing." Hayes pulled out another data pad, smaller than the first. "This is a copy of everything Perth has on his private server. Communications with corporate executives, payment records, orders to suppress information about the creatures." Carla took the device. "Why give this to me?" "Because I can't move against him directly without proof that'll hold up in military court. But you're the perfect witness, the survivor who came back with evidence. If you can get this information to someone who'll actually use it," Hayes glanced at the door. "There's a communications officer named Danny Sullivan. Young kid, idealistic, works the night shift in signals. He's clean. If you can reach him, he can get an encrypted burst transmission to Earth Defense Command. Bypass Perth entirely. How am I supposed to reach anyone?" Hayes smiled grimly. "The ventilation system in this room connects to the main circulation shaft. It's tight, but you're small enough. Take you straight to the communications building if you go left at the second junction. And the guards will be mysteriously called away in approximately 90 seconds for a security drill I'm about to order." Hayes moved toward the door. "After that, you're on your own. Get the message out, Briggs. For all of us." He left, taking the scrambler with him. Carla looked at the ventilation grate above the cot, then at the datapad in her hands. 59 hours. She started unscrewing the grate. The ventilation shaft was tighter than Hayes described. Carla's damaged armor scraped against metal with every movement, the sound echoing through the ducts like gunfire. She froze at each noise, waiting for alarms, but none came. The security drill was working. Left at the second junction. She counted the intersections, pulling herself forward on her elbows. The datapad was secured in her chest pouch, digging into her ribs with each movement. Her injuries screamed in protest, but the medkit's painkillers kept her functional. Barely. She reached the communications building after 15 minutes of crawling. The grate below opened into a storage room. Carla dropped down as quietly as possible, landing in a crouch among boxes of spare parts and cable spools. The door was unlocked. She cracked it open and peered into the hallway. Empty. The night shift meant skeleton crews. Most personnel were either sleeping or on perimeter duty. She moved quickly, staying low, following the signs toward the main communications hub. Danny Sullivan was exactly where Hayes said he'd be. Early 20s, fresh-faced, bent over a console running diagnostic protocols. He looked up when Carla entered and nearly fell out of his chair. "Holy hell, you're supposed to be in quarantine." Carla closed the door behind her and locked it. "I need your help. Captain Hayes said you could be trusted." Sullivan's expression shifted from shock to calculation. "Hayes sent you? Then this is about Perth. You know, everyone knows something's wrong. We just don't talk about it." Sullivan glanced at his screens, then back to Carla. "What do you need?" She handed him the datapad. "Encrypted burst transmission to Earth Defense Command. Bypass all local command channels. Can you do it?" Sullivan's fingers flew across his keyboard, pulling up communication protocols. "I can, but it'll trigger every alarm on this base. Perth will know the second I start the upload." "How long will the transmission take?" 6 minutes for full data upload and encryption. Maybe 4 if I strip some redundancy, but that risks corruption." Carla checked her chronometer. "Do it in 4. I'll buy you the time." "How?" "By making sure Perth's attention is somewhere else." Carla pulled her sidearm and checked the charge. Still half full. "Start the upload when you hear shooting." She left Sullivan staring after her and moved back into the hallway. The armory was 2 buildings over. If she could create enough chaos there, pull security away from communications, but she didn't make it that far. Colonel Perth was waiting in the corridor outside, flanked by 6 armed soldiers. His expression was cold. "Did you really think Hayes was subtle?" Perth shook his head. "I've been monitoring him for weeks. The second he scrambled your room surveillance, I knew exactly what he was planning." Carla's hand moved to her weapon. The soldiers raised their rifles. "Don't." Perth's voice was ice. "You're already facing court-martial for desertion and collaboration with enemy forces. Add assaulting an officer and you'll be executed before trial. You're going to execute me anyway. Can't have witnesses to your war crimes." "War crimes?" Perth laughed. "You still don't understand. This isn't a crime." It's business. Do you know what those creatures produce? A compound that extends human lifespan by decades. Cures diseases we've been fighting for centuries. Regenerates tissue, prevents cellular decay. It's worth trillions. Enough to fund colony expansion for the next 100 years. It's murder. And yes, some indigenous animals died. That's unfortunate. But humanity's survival takes precedence over sentimentality. Perth stepped closer. The Kreveth would have killed those creatures themselves eventually, hunted them to extinction like every species does with its resources. We just got there first. They weren't hunting them. They were protecting them. Those creatures are sacred to them. Sacred. Perth spat the word. Superstitious nonsense. The Kravoth are primitives playing at civilization. They don't deserve a world this valuable. Carla felt something snap inside her. You started a war. Got hundreds of people killed. All for corporate profit. I ensured humanity's future. And when this is over, when we've driven the Kreveth off world or exterminated them, I'll be decorated for it. Perth gestured to his soldiers. Take her to holding. Not medical this time. Somewhere secure. The soldiers moved forward. Carla's mind raced. Sullivan needed 4 minutes. She'd given him maybe 2. Not enough. She drew her sidearm and fired, not at Perth, at the power junction box on the wall behind him. The blast shorted out every light in the corridor, plunging them into darkness. Emergency lighting kicked in after 3 seconds, but Carla was already moving. She hit the nearest soldier with her armored shoulder, sending him sprawling. Grabbed his rifle as he fell and used it to parry the second soldier's strike. Her damaged ribs screamed, but she kept moving, kept fighting. Perth was shouting orders. More soldiers were coming. She could hear boots pounding down adjacent corridors. Carla triggered the rifle's automatic mode and sprayed covering fire down the hallway. Sparks flew from wall panels. Someone screamed. She didn't stop to see who. She ran, back toward communications. The alarms were blaring now, the entire base lighting up. She had seconds before they locked down every building. Sullivan's door was still closed. Carla slammed into it shoulder first. The lock gave way and she tumbled inside. Sullivan was at his console, sweat pouring down his face. 3 minutes! I need 3 more minutes! You don't have it! Carla moved to the window. Soldiers were converging on the building from 3 directions. How much data is left? 72% uploaded. If I stop now, it's useless. The context gets lost. The evidence fragmentary. Carla looked at the approaching soldiers, then at Sullivan's desperate face, at the progress bar crawling across his screen. She made the decision. Lock this door behind me. Don't open it for anyone but Hayes. And Sullivan? She met his eyes. Make sure this matters. Carla stepped back into the hallway and sealed the communications room door, used her override codes to engage the internal locks. It wouldn't hold forever, but it might hold long enough. The soldiers rounded the corner, 20 of them now, led by Perth himself. Stand down, Lieutenant. Perth's voice echoed off metal walls. You're only making this worse. Carla raised her stolen rifle. How much worse can it get? You're already planning to kill me. Surrender and I'll let you live. Keep fighting and you die here. Then I die here. She opened fire. The hallway erupted into chaos. Plasma bolts filled the air, scorching walls and ceiling. Carla took cover behind a support column, returning fire in controlled bursts. She wasn't trying to kill anyone. Just buy time. Just give Sullivan his 3 minutes. A bolt caught her shoulder. Her armor held, but the impact spun her around. Another hit her leg. She went down hard. Perth approached slowly, his sidearm drawn. "It's over, Briggs." Carla checked her rifle. Empty. She looked up at Perth and smiled through bloody teeth. "No, it's not." Behind the communications room door, she heard a chime. The transmission completing. Perth heard it too. His face went white. "What did you do?" "Sent the truth to people who will actually use it. Your career just ended, Colonel." Perth aimed his weapon at her head. His hand was shaking. "Then you ended with it. The shot never came." Captain Hayes stepped out from a side corridor, his own weapon trained on Perth. "Lower it, Colonel. That's an order. You don't give me orders, Hayes. Earth Defense Intelligence does. And as of 30 seconds ago, you're under arrest for conspiracy, murder, and treason." Hayes gestured, and soldiers wearing different insignia emerged behind him. EDI operatives who'd been embedded in the base. "It's over, Nathan. We have everything we need." Perth's weapon wavered. For a moment, Carla thought he might fight, but then his shoulders sagged and the gun clattered to the floor. Hayes helped Carla to her feet. Sullivan got the message out. "Command is already moving. Arrest warrants for everyone involved. The Cravath. We'll contact them. Negotiate. Show them we're handling it." Hayes looked at the blood spreading across Carla's armor. "But first, let's keep you alive." Carla shook her head. "No time. I have to go back. I'm the only one they trust. You're barely standing." "Then give me something to keep me standing." She pulled away from Hayes' grip. "They gave me 3 days. I have," she checked her chronometer, 41 hours left, and I'm not letting this end in more death." Hayes studied her face. Then he nodded. "Get her to medical, full treatment, and prep a transport." As they carried her toward the medbay, Carla looked back at Perth being led away in restraints. He met her eyes, and for just a second she saw something there. Not remorse, just the cold calculation of a man who'd gambled everything and lost. The medical team worked on Carla for 6 hours. Bone knitters for her ribs, tissue regenerators for the plasma burns, stimulants to keep her conscious despite blood loss that should have killed her twice over. When they finished, she could walk without stumbling and breathe without tasting copper. Hayes met her at the landing pad where a human shuttle waited. Proper military transport this time. He handed her a secure comm unit and a data chip. "Official communication from Earth Defense Command," Hayes said. "Full admission of corporate involvement. Arrest warrants issued for 73 individuals, including board members from 6 major pharmaceutical companies. The harvesting operations are shut down. All remaining creatures are to be returned to Cravath custody." Carla took the chip. "Will the Cravath believe it?" "That's why you're going back. You're the bridge. The one who showed them humanity could be better." Hayes paused. "There's something else. We found the colonists, the original settlement the Cravath supposedly wiped out." "Where?" "Corporate holding facility, 300 miles north. They've been alive this whole time. Kept as leverage in case negotiations ever started. The Cravath never touched them." Carla closed her eyes. Every briefing had been a lie. Every death in her squad had been for nothing. How many? 247. Mostly civilians. Some are injured, but they're alive. Get them ready for transport. If I can convince the Cravath to stand down, those people are going home. The flight to the canyon took an hour. Carla spent the time reviewing the official documents, memorizing every detail. The pilot, a young woman named Lisa Chen, kept the shuttle low to avoid detection by remaining Cravath forces. "Lieutenant," Chen said as they approached the coordinates, "we're picking up massive energy signatures ahead. Looks like the entire Cravath army is mobilizing." Through the viewport, Carla could see them. Thousands of warriors in formation, their plasma weapons gleaming in the sun, siege equipment that dwarfed anything humans had deployed. Artillery platforms built into the canyon walls, they were preparing for extinction-level war. Chen brought the shuttle down a safe distance from the canyon entrance. "Want me to come with you?" "No. Stay with the shuttle. If this goes wrong, get back to base and tell Hayes what happened." Carla walked alone toward the Cravath army. How it could have slipped outside of our perimeters. They saw her coming. Warriors moved to intercept. But before they could reach her, a familiar figure emerged from the canyon. The leader, the one who'd held the dying creature. He raised one hand and his warriors stopped. Carla approached until she stood directly in front of him. She pulled out the data chip and held it up. I have proof, evidence that my government is taking action. The people responsible for killing your sacred children are being arrested. The harvesting has stopped. The leader took the chip, examined it, then crushed it in his fist. Carla's heart sank. Words on metal mean nothing, the translated voice said through a nearby device. We have heard promises before, from your colony administrators, from your corporate representatives. All lies. These are official military documents, signed by Earth Defense Command. More words. More metal. The leader gestured to the army behind him. We are done with words. Done with trust. In 37 of your hours, we erase every human presence from this world. That is certainty. That is action. Then you'll be murderers, just like the people I'm trying to stop. The leader's eyes flashed. We defend sacred children. We protect what remains. That is not murder. That is survival. It's revenge. And it'll cost you everything. Carla stepped closer. Earth won't let this stand. You wipe out this colony, they'll send warships, destroy this planet from orbit rather than lose it. Your sacred children won't survive that. Nobody will. Then we all die. Better than living while sacred children are harvested. Carla felt desperation rising. Words weren't working. Evidence wasn't working. She needed something more. She thought of the creature under that bulkhead. The way its eye had looked at her. The simple act that had changed everything. You told me one gesture showed you humans could be better, Carla said. Let me show you another. Come with me. Just you. I'll take you to something that proves we're changing. The leader studied her. Where? The colonists. The ones you supposedly killed. They're alive. We found them, and I can bring you to them right now. Silence. The leader conferred with his warriors in rapid speech Carla couldn't follow. Arguments erupted. Some warriors struck their chests in what looked like protest. Others gestured toward Carla. Finally, the leader turned back. If this is deception, then you kill me and launch your attack anyway. You lose nothing by looking. The leader considered this. Then he called out orders. A smaller transport approached, Kravoth design. He boarded it and gestured for Carla to follow. Chen's voice crackled in Carla's earpiece. Lieutenant, what are you doing? Buying time, Carla whispered. Tell Hayes to have the colonists ready. The flight north was tense. The leader sat across from Carla, silent and massive, his forearms folded. Every few minutes he'd touch the markings on his chest. That gesture she'd learned meant prayer or remembrance. The creature I found, Carla said quietly. Did it have a name? The leader's eyes focused on her. Sereth Kor means gentle teacher in your language. She was young, only 4 cycles old, born in the sanctuary. I'm sorry I couldn't save her. You gave what mattered. Comfort, recognition of worth. The leader leaned forward. Tell me truth. When you kissed Sereth Kor, did you know we watched? No. Did you know it would change outcome of war? No. I just saw something dying alone, and I couldn't let that happen. The leader made a sound, deep and resonant. Not quite a laugh, not quite a sob. That is why we stopped. That is why I am here now. Because you acted without calculation, without strategy. You saw pain and responded with compassion. That cannot be faked. The holding facility came into view, a cluster of prefab buildings surrounded by fencing. Human guards stood at attention as the Kravoth transport descended. Hayes was waiting outside with a full security detail. He tensed when he saw the leader emerge but held his ground. Captain Hayes, Carla said formally. This is the Kravoth war leader. I've brought him to see the colonists. Hayes nodded slowly. They're inside. Medical team is with them. The leader followed them into the main building. The colonists were gathered in a large common area. tired and thin but alive. They looked up as the massive Krevith entered, and fear rippled through the crowd. An older woman stepped forward. "Mayor Catherine Walsh, according to the ID badge she still wore, you're Krevith." "Yes," the leader's translated voice filled the room. "You were told I killed your people. We were told you destroyed our settlement. That you were animals, savages. We never touched your settlement. Humans did that. Made it appear we attacked. Used you as excuse for war." The leader turned to Carla. "Show them." Carla pulled up the files on her datapad. Surveillance footage of the false flag operation. Corporate soldiers staging the attack. Zenthar forces doing the actual killing while wearing captured Krevith armor. The colonists watched in growing horror. Some wept. Others looked angry enough to start their own war. "We didn't know," Walsh said. "They kept us here for months, told us it was for our protection, that the Krevith would kill us if we left." The leader approached Walsh slowly. She flinched but held her ground. He extended one massive hand, palm up. "Your people were used as weapons against mine. Mine were slaughtered for profit. Both our kinds suffered because others chose greed over honor." He touched his chest. "I offer truth debt. My warriors will protect your return to settlements. We'll help rebuild what was destroyed. We'll ensure safe passage." Walsh stared at the offered hand. Then, slowly, she placed her much smaller hand in his. "I accept, and I offer the same. Whatever my people can do to help yours, we will." The leader's grip was gentle despite his size. "Then perhaps both our kinds survive this. Perhaps we build something better than war." Carla felt something loosen in her chest. Hope. Maybe. Or just exhaustion finally catching up. Hay stepped forward. "We have 33 hours before your deadline. If we're going to stop this war permanently, we need formal negotiations. Command is sending a diplomatic team." "Negotiations built on what foundation?" The leader released Walsh's hand. "Your government speaks with many voices. Some want peace, some want profit. How do we know which voice speaks truth?" "You don't," Carla said. "Not yet, but you can verify. Send your own people to Earth. See the arrests happening. Watch the trials. Demand accountability in real time, not just promises." The leader was quiet for a long moment. Then he activated his own communication device and spoke rapidly in his native tongue. "I am recalling the attack force," the translation said. "But we remain on defensive status. We trust but verify, as your people say. Your diplomats will meet ours. Both sides will have witnesses. Both sides will have evidence. And if your government betrays this trust," he looked directly at Carla, "you will be first we contact. Because you showed us truth of spirit. You became bridge between worlds. I'm just a soldier. You are witness to possibility. Proof that humans can see beyond profit. Can recognize sacred without ownership. Can give compassion without calculation." The leader placed one hand on her shoulder. "That is worth more than any treaty. That is foundation for real peace." 6 months later, Carla stood in the sanctuary cavern and watched the creatures play. They'd multiplied since her first visit. The tenders reported 73 new births, healthy and thriving. The stolen creatures had been returned, most of them surviving the transition. The Krevith had welcomed them back with ceremonies that lasted 3 days. Earth had sent diplomats, as promised. Real ones this time, not corporate puppets. The trials were ongoing. Perth was serving life in a military prison. 47 pharmaceutical executives faced similar sentences. The rest had turned evidence against each other, desperate to save themselves. It wasn't justice. Not really. Too many people had died. Too many creatures had suffered. But it was accountability. It was change. A small creature approached Carla, one of the young ones born after the war ended. It rubbed against her leg with surprising force, purring with a sound like distant thunder. She knelt and scratched behind what passed for its ears. "They remember you," a voice said. Carla looked up. The leader approached, accompanied by the silver-marked tender. They moved with the easy confidence of people in their own home. "They weren't alive when I was here before," Carla said. "Not these ones, but the others remember. They teach the young, show them the human who gave comfort, the one who saw sacred. The leader settled beside her, his massive frame somehow graceful. You have become legend among sacred children, and among my people. I don't want to be a legend. I just want to make sure this never happens again. The tender activated her translation device. Then you will be disappointed. Somewhere, in some system, greed will triumph again. Violence will seem easier than understanding. It is the nature of all species. That's bleak. That is reality. But the tender gesture to the cavern around them. Also reality. You changed outcome of war with single act of compassion. Proved that individual choice matters. That one gesture can redirect entire futures. That is not legend. That is fact. Carla stood as more creatures gathered around her, curious and unafraid. Above, on the terraced platforms, young Kreveth and human colonist children worked together caring for the sacred children under tender supervision. An exchange program, part of the peace accords, teaching both species to see each other as partners instead of threats. It wasn't perfect. There were still incidents, still distrust on both sides. Some humans refused to accept that their government had lied. Some Kreveth refused to believe humans could change, but the children didn't carry those hatreds. They just saw creatures that needed care and friends from another world willing to help. Captain Hayes recommended me for promotion, Carla said. Admiral staff position. They want me to head up the new Interspecies Relations Division. Will you accept? I don't know. I'm a soldier, not a diplomat. The leader made that sound that wasn't quite a laugh. You were soldier who became bridge, who showed that fighting is not only response to difference, that compassion can be stronger than violence. If that is not diplomacy, what is? Diplomacy usually involves fewer plasma burns. Then perhaps diplomacy should change to match your example. The leader stood, extending a hand to help her up. Come, there is something you should see. He led her to a new section of the cavern, one that hadn't existed during her first visit. Kreveth workers were still carving the walls, creating fresh murals to document recent history. And there, rendered in meticulous detail, was Carla kneeling beside Sareth Kor's body, her hand on gray fur, her lips pressed to a dying creature's forehead. Around the image, the workers had carved text in both Krevath script and English. When the woman kissed the dying sacred child, the Alphas dropped their spears. Not from weakness, not from fear, but from recognition that strength comes in many forms, that the greatest warriors are those who choose compassion when violence would be easier. Let this moment be remembered. Let it guide future choices. Let it remind all species that change begins with single acts of grace. Carla stared at the carving. Her throat tightened. This is too much. I'm not. You are exactly this. The leader placed his hand over the carved image. You showed us truth we had forgotten in our rage. That, protecting sacred children, means more than destroying threats. It means building a world where all beings can recognize sacred in each other, where compassion crosses species lines, where a simple gesture of comfort can end wars. The tender approached with a small bundle wrapped in soft cloth. She unwrapped it carefully, revealing a tiny creature no bigger than Carla's hand, barely a few days old, its eyes still closed. This one was born 3 nights ago, the tender said. First birth since formal peace treaty signed. Her mother chose name already. Would like you to hear it. The tender spoke in Krevoth, a melodic series of sounds. Then the translation, Sarath Kor Memoria. Gentle teacher remembered, named for the one you comforted. Named to honor connection between species. Named to remind future generations that peace began with compassion. She held the creature out to Carla. She is not gift. Sacred children cannot be owned. But she is trust. Mother asks that you visit often, that you witness growth, that you remain bridge between our peoples. Carla took the tiny creature carefully. It fit in her palms, warm and impossibly fragile. Its small chest rose and fell with quick breaths. As she held it, one miniature paw reached out and grasped her thumb. She thought of Sarathkor dying under that bulkhead, of the choice she'd made without thinking, of how that single moment had cascaded into this, into peace instead of extinction, into bridges instead of graves. "I'll come back," Carla said quietly. "I'll visit. I'll do whatever it takes to make sure this lasts." "Then perhaps you should accept promotion," the leader said. "Use position to strengthen what we have built, to export this model to other worlds, other conflicts. You said you are soldier. But soldiers who choose compassion over violence become something greater. They become hope." Carla looked at the mural again, at her own image frozen in that moment of grace, at the words promising that single acts could change everything. Maybe they were right. Maybe one person could make a difference. She'd proven it once already. She handed the tiny creature back to the tender, gentle, and reverent. "Tell the mother I'm honored, and tell her I accept." Hayes was waiting when Carla emerged from the canyon hours later. He looked at her expression and smiled. "You're taking the promotion. I am. Good." Earth Defense Command needs someone who understands that strength isn't just about firepower, that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is show kindness to something dying alone. They walked toward the transport together. Behind them, the Kravath sanctuary thrived. Ahead, a galaxy full of species learning to coexist or failing to and paying the price. Carla thought of all the conflicts still burning across colonized space, all the misunderstandings that became massacres, all the chances for compassion that were lost to fear and greed. One person couldn't fix all of it, but one person could start, could show that another way existed, could kiss the forehead of something dying and change the course of history. She'd done it once. She could do it again. As the transport lifted off, Carla looked back at the canyon one last time. In the fading light, she could just make out the Kravath leader standing at the entrance, one hand raised in farewell. She raised her own hand in response. A soldier who'd become a bridge. A warrior who'd chosen compassion. A human who'd shown an entire species that her people could be better. Not perfect, not flawless, but better. And sometimes,